Okay, so we are back at Senate Natural Resources and Energy, Friday the 26th, and we have one more, in addition to anything that wants sort of a general end of week conversation to wrap things up and prepare for next week. I wanted to pass out copies of 3 bills that I would like to vote out on. We could do it today if people are comfortable, or we could do it Tuesday. And I was gonna ask for Tuesday, but I wanted to give people a heads up, so. The drafting deadline, was, what was that, December 1st or something like that, so things have come, no surprise, showing up. After that drafting deadline, so I have 3 things that have come in for work. 2 of them came from the PUC, which I think will open up an opportunity to do some other PUC work. Like we can combine things. So one is a PUC housekeeping bill. We often get one from them. And one deals with making adjustments to the Affordable Heat Act process. Because as they're implementing it, they found certain things just awkwardly constructed a year ago. So they said, can you help us improve the process? So they aren't substantive changes, but they are process changes that helps them run manage the program as it exists now. So the other beauty of this one to me, besides helping them run the process, is it's the basis of us having them in to say what's been going on this year, what's next, what's the timeline, because I haven't I would need a refresher on what all the milestones are from the bill from a year ago. So there's a PUC housekeeping, PUC 8 Affordable Heat Act, and then from AMR, Matt Chapman asked if we could do, this one, conservation and development. So there's another one on the way they manage contaminated sites, I believe. I haven't looked at it for a month, so. Anyway, I didn't want to surprise people and say, can we please vote all 3 of these things through? But I've given you time to see them and read them, but it's not an endorsement on the part of me in particular. It's that we voted out as a committee bill, goes to drafting operations, it will get introduced, and committee bills go directly to the action calendar, so which we're not ready for. And then I would move on the floor to have the bill referred back to the committee, so. In essence, yeah, in essence, it gives us a way to have a late bill introduction. There's one other bill I would like to do that for, and that is we've been having conversations with folks on Act 250, so we had all those folks in who walked us through the Natural Resources Board proposal, and I've been in conversation with folks for weeks. So that I hope to have something to hand out today so that people could see that, and it would be the 4th thing that we would vote out of the committee bill, then bring back in and continue to work. But just in terms of what's the idea, it's that I really don't want to see our committee, which I think has a really essential role to play on how Act 250 matures, develops, gets modified, be a late recipient of the work of others and only be kind of in a reactive position. So by having a committee bill, it'll be a vehicle, who knows what actually comes of it. I can most imagine it being used as the basis for a committee report when some bill comes in here. But it's a little unclear as to how the multiple Act 250 bills are going to make it from the House to the Senate. Economic development is, as we all know, hard at work on housing, but that draws an Act 250. We had that really helpful productive hearing the other day with that committee. Sometimes someone will say, well, if you don't like what we have, what's your proposal? So rather than us responding on the fly, I'd like us to say, matter of fact, we do have a proposal and we've been sort of cooking away on it. To be ready for whenever that day of reckoning on Act 215,000 comes.
Yeah.
So that's the backstory of. How to, I think, put our, in a better posture for work that will be coming to us, I'm not sure when. But I didn't wanna have a late start. So that's it, there's four, I asked to vote them on Tuesday, because they need to be introduced no later than Wednesday. And then we get them all referred back in here and have it as another team was supported. And that's it for, so, I do want long-term schedule, so I'm hoping that 2 weeks from today, we'll have finished all our climate change ethics to 13 work. So if there's something that we haven't brought up yet for that bill, so river corridors, floodplains, wetlands, dams. And the mapping for all that, if there are things that you're thinking about that we haven't brought in, we. Good time to, one, just share on the committee so we know, and then two, to talk with. Council so that you can start to have something. Drafted, because we always need. Better progress when we're looking at draft language. In front of us. So Senator Watson, then Senator White.
Oh, thank you. So one of the things that is on my radar that I'm interested in drawing into S 213
Yeah.
is a study on the potential for expanding the current use program to include
Right.
floodplain management.
Yep.
And questions that I hope to answer through that would be along two trains. One, should we do this? Like, what would be the implications? And then, if you were going to do it, how would it be constructed? Like, what would the mechanisms be? Just be like minimum acreage, that kind of thing. So I've already been in touch with Ledge Council about this as a possibility. So
To Michael,
they might help.
Yeah.
Have
have you talked to anyone at PBR at all?
not.
Okay. That's.
I've had conversations with other people, but and it's not that I have been avoiding it, I just haven't got to it yet, so I'm
Get it?
open to being wrong.
Well, it would seem like an interest. The point of current use is keeping green spaces that are providing some sort of function, whether it's forest, productive forest, farmland, productive farmland. Green spaces that are helping with flooding seems like yet another use. Matter of fact, we're hoping it's not gonna. Sounds like it would make it easier to keep those places undeveloped. Because the
Yes.
property tax would go down, so there'd be less development, correct? Okay. Great. Senator White?
Thank you, Chair Bray. I really like the plan that you've laid out for us, all on board. I had two questions.
Sure.
The first is Senator Watson has a bill that is in Senate Government Operations that is PUC related. And I feel like it is relevant to this conversation. It maybe has a bit more, I would say, like it's a little less like it's not a technical change.
Yeah.
But it is a valuable change, and I'm wondering the conversation about even though it is in Senate GovOps, is there a way
Happily,
to incorporate?
We have 1/3 of the Senate Government Operations Committee in Senate National, so.
Would we be able, or if I were to propose taking some of the language from that bill to be considered in this, would that be appropriate?
Sure, I think it'd be good, if you. Talk with your chair about how we're already. I mean, it's unusual, I think, for GovOps to work on. PCs.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why.
Well, I think
What is it?
the
again?
logic.
What's the bill do?
Two things.
Yeah.
One is it asks the auditor to
Oh,
do an to do a study of the alignment between legislative intent and PUC's results or actions. And then the other part of it actually for the sake of equity, takes the
Oh, the environmental justice stuff.
well, yeah, it takes the equity advisory group from the clean heat standard. And starts it sooner and gives it a broader scope, so it doesn't eliminate anything that. You know, the Affordable Heat Act envisions them doing, but allows them to, or asks them to look at more than just Affordable Heat Act. And I think it affects, some, I think it either increases their pay or allows them more meetings or something like that. So, yeah, that's
Okay.
pretty much
It
it.
feels relevant to this topic, so perhaps we can just bring a section of it over to look at for.
Sure, and that'll be in here, you know, so when anything we're gonna ask them in on, we should share the language with them ahead of time so that we can be prepared, we can include it in the conversation. And if you all, as GovOps members, can talk in your chair about, you know, so it's not like we're pulling something out of where it was referred, which every chair is sensitive to.
Yes.
So that was great.
Well, Mark, I'm happy we will have a conversation with Senator Hurd yet. And then my second question was, we haven't, I'm not sure. Outside of this committee bill, you've laid out some priorities at the beginning of the year. We've talked about our priorities, what the timeline would be as we get closer to crossover. What we would wanna send over, and we have some like sister bills to a few of ours over here.
Yeah.
That are in-house energy and environment. I'm just not sure how you would want us to proceed with those, if you have an idea and those conversations are happening. Should we be moving on the geothermal thing now? Should we be waiting to get something on it? I think just the
I don't think
timing.
we're gonna see anything, I don't think, my impression is we won't see geothermal from the house.
Okay.
However, if we're seeing an energy bill from the house, it could be germane, and we could, for instance, add another car to the train when RES comes. Something like that. So I'm trying to keep an eye on what's coming and germaneness to see how we prioritize what won't be germane so that we make sure we get our stuff out. The post, so if it's 2 weeks, I'm gonna assume we do wrap up 213 on 2 weeks from now. I'd like to see us in crisp way work our way through the Fish and Wildlife bill. It's narrow, it's technical, and I'd like to bring it up, do it, and
This is a change in.
yes, the Fish and Wildlife Board going from a legislative body to an advisory board. With a couple of others, more different items, and I'd like to do that sooner rather than later, so that we would be finished with it well before our meeting week, so when people leave. The disposition of that topic is clear to everyone. I don't want people in be in unfortunate position of we're still working on the bill and we're out of the building for town meeting week break, which. I think it'll just be kinder to us and all our colleagues if we
Yes.
finish our work before we leave for town meeting.
I think that does a very. Yes, Chris.
If we're done, once we're done, better if we're done quickly.
The other one that I don't know that we're gonna have a place to attach, so. Wondering about moving is the building energy standard.
Yeah.
That's also quite narrow, and also would use some help with you two being on GovOps, because there's one other provision that's not in it. That I think is pretty simple, but no, it's like a not wood word to use. There's currently a registry for builders that's housed at the Secretary of State's office. It becomes a mandatory registration as of I think March 1st this year or something like that. There are lots of builders who say, I didn't know that the residential, commercial building entity standards were actually law. I thought it was maybe like a suggestion.
Shall bill should.
So, and it's been law for, what, I forget the year, many years already. So one opportunity, when people register. Will be you can't complete registration without checking a box that says. I understand that the residential and and commercial building energy standards are mandatory in the state of Vermont. Just an attestation by the applicant that you know. If we want to do something super user friendly, we might have a link to those things, but the simplest thing would be a checkbox. But that's housed at the Secretary of State's office, so I wanted to,
GovOps-ish.
yeah, so it's a GovOps issue, so I wanted to, ask you two senators who were in that committee if you can help, and I'm not the chair, but you can be there to explain and help us do that thing all in one bill.
Sure.
And that's also bill reestablishes or keeps the working group going, and then we can go through, but so there are a few things that I would, and my hope is that we have roughly 4 or 5 bills prior to crossover, and I think we will. I'm feeling like it's doable, and I'm gonna work in the next week or so on the calendar all the way through crossover, and I'll bring it back to the committee. We can brainstorm about this. Are we getting everything loaded in that we want, and also think a little bit about sequence too, so. Thanks for waiting, sorry.
Sir, before, in the coming weeks, we had the joint hearing the other day.
Yep.
In which several of witnesses described situations in which they had what certainly was presented as a worthy project. That was then slowed up by people intervening. And the presentation to us was that those interventions were a bad thing because they inconvenienced a good thing. And I would like to take a look at the interventions. It seems to me that the assumption is that it's a bad thing for neighbors to intervene. That it's a bad thing for the citizenry to intervene. And maybe it is, but maybe it is. And I would like us to go through some, I would say in my notes, I guess, and everyone else has, to just take a look at some of those cases where we heard about how terrible it was that a Vermonter had an issue. And to look at what was that Vermonter's issue, and did it happen? And maybe it didn't. I don't know where that will all lead. And it wouldn't be the first time that I worked against my own agenda. But comment comes in, I think it's something we ought to look at.
Right.
The second way is
Senator Corbett, can I
Yeah.
make just a quick point on that? Mr. Chair, I believe they're coming, the NRV is coming out with a report in February. Where there's some kind of, I've asked them for numbers on appeals and the process to try to get a sense. And it sounds like they're going to be issuing some information on that in February, so at the very least, could we
In
have
addition to
them?
the NRV, necessary changes to Act 50.
Yeah, it sounds like they do, I can ask, the chair again, Haskell, Ms. Haskell? The one, yeah, but it seems like they will be giving us some updated data and information that we may at the very least just wanna schedule a hear about.
Yeah, sure.
Unless our colleagues talked about Act 250 reform. And first of all, the argument has been made repeatedly that this is 50 years old and would already outdated. I was not here for the whole 50 years, but I started about 36 years ago. There's never been a single year that some changes weren't made. This is not the 1970 law. It has been constantly updated, and generally the updates involve less protection of the environment and less access for Vermonters to speak to development in their environment. So I would like us to take a look at if we're going to reform Act 250, exemptions are not a reform. That's cutting Act 250 out of it. If there are ideas for faster easier, cheaper Act 250 process. I'm all ears, and I hope that we continue, I'm gonna continue to advocate for the idea of a master permit. Rather than an downtown exemption, a master permit. And that would certainly empower municipalities, they. Okay, and then another thing more,
Quick question,
Yeah.
Master Permit, if you talk with someone like Carly Baker or the RTCs or Sabine Haskell about whether or not anyone, I mean, you added that provision last
Yeah.
year. And so it's been in force since July 1. I'm wondering if anyone has, inquired about it, taken it.
I think
Used it.
I think there are developers who would rather not do it. Right, and so that's not a particularly attractive alternative to that.
But what's your construct that the municipality asked for the designation?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be developer driven, the municipality.
Well, municipalities don't want development, I should phrase that back. Another issue altogether that I want us to look at. And I always think no matter how sure you are about something or how enthusiastic you are about something, if your colleagues have heard you out and you've participated and it hasn't necessarily gone your way, then the deal is done and you don't go. But when all of our global warming and energy conservation, clean energy initiatives, we have put on a fairly long timetable. Some would say, we kick the can down the road. I don't think that's entirely fair to us. I think it's rather that we have taken the issue as far as we can take it and then hand it off to the PUC, you take care of the details, so on. But this is the whole clean energy initiative, this committee is still a work in progress, as I understand it. And in that regard, I would like to at least consider, I'm hearing from constituents, Senator White is hearing from them, who think that we were entirely too enthusiastic about biofuels and Hydro-Quebec. And that this is not nearly as green as we congratulate ourselves to be. And the other thing is something as far as I'm concerned, we barely looked at is geothermal. And geothermal is a real, if it's as presented, you're talking about something that's clean. And
So we have a geothermal bill
Yeah.
and in my mind, that's one that we would think crossover with unless we were pretty confident that we had another train attached to post crossover.
I think Senator McCormick's points that we heard from constituents might actually be better addressed when we talk about the renewable energy standard. However, I don't disagree with that point if we wanted to bring something up in a student bill, but I have a feeling that their comments they're also sharing with energy and environment right now as they are finishing the bill.
Yep.
And the last bit of information I heard is they're gonna try to vote it out within the next week. And then it'll come to us, so it might be better kind of under that auspice, but who knows? We can, probably, this is.
I was talking about this committee going forward, where I'm hoping we go.
Yeah.
Well, we're having. Thermal rates, which was. What the biofuels is that any clean, affordable heat rules have to. Measure and come out with the with the total costs or price of the biofuels. And we've dealt with that and we're awaiting the PUC's recommendations. So like ignored it.
I didn't know, I hope I didn't come across as saying we ignored it. I'm saying that I think it's still.
Previously, it had been. Biofuels had not asked the tough questions.
Yeah.
The bill we passed last year asked the questions and delivers some answers this June unless the PUC fails to meet its deadline.
like there's the whole carbon intensity sort of engine that lives inside the clean heat standard that,
Well, the question, as I understood it, was where does the committee want to go in the coming weeks? It's, we're out of November.
Yeah, I do think they are gonna we might have something that is exactly on this topic that comes to us. But the other point that we've heard from constituents is about how renewable energy credits are looked at, and so I think it's a multi-pronged approach to the conversation that you've been having, which is what is really green and what is labeled as green.
Yeah.
And I think based on what I'm hearing is happening in the House, we'll probably have a bite of that apple.
right, under the reds, what drops into what category, who earns the clean label versus the renewable label?
Is it
What do you mean by that?
is it retired, can they sell it, like, all of that is something that we have constituents who are very intently.
That can be reduced to a fairly bold question, which is. Work the entire equation. Does it end up really with less atmosphere
Yeah.
carbon?
Exactly.
That's ultimately what we're saying.
We're supposed to get the equation in June. And then we decide whether the equation is what we asked for or not, right?
You know,
Before we seek reelection.
I forgot one, and that is the battery,
Oh.
EPR bill, which is
Yes.
another narrow bill, you know, I'm not into sports metaphors, but I'm finding myself using them more. Last year I was saying that he was like a swing for the fences, home and run sort of big deal bill. And then this year I was hoping we would hit like a bunch of singles and doubles, and
For the,
More of a cricket like scenario game
Yeah.
versus a cricket.
we'll end up with a good score. That is another one which is, you know, important and pretty narrow, and I think is, you know, feasible for us to spend like 3 days on, and we've marched through, we've heard everyone we need to hear, and then out the door we go. So I think that was a mistake on my part not to mention EPR for batteries. All right, so next week is gonna be more two things, so we're Act 250, like our own committee bill, to do a little more work on that canvas and keep ourselves preparing for whatever our moment is to really act on Act 250 and housing, and then to really drive home things on 213. We're starting off on Tuesday with the A&R is gonna come in about this proposal we've had. You know, yesterday we talked a little bit about how do we phase in, what does that might that look like, how much money, how much staff, what is a good plan for you doing it? If everyone said, yes, this is a good idea. And so it's not controversial, but how would you actually do it and what are the steps? So, but I was in touch with A&R already today, and they're right on the front burner, with the heat turned full, I think, right now. So, should be good, very interested to see what we see on Tuesday. Anything else? Sharon?
I mean, Mr. Chair, I just felt that the bills that we heard from the senator from Windsor County on flushable wipes and and the EPR program were very relevant. And I would advocate that we move on them, but I'm respectful if that does not ultimately happen.
Well, washable is super attractive because it's dealing with nonsense in commerce. And that, you know, it's like. It doesn't pass quite the straight face test. We'll have to hear from backers and folks, they might. Anyway, so tires feels like honestly a heavier lift
Yeah.
because everyone's got tires and we are gonna hear from a lot of parties on that one.
That one I think will take substantial time. So I think you're not wrong. If we will, I don't think we would like to get the or crossover, even if we spend time on it, but I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Collect information from the relevant parties.
Well, you know, so I can imagine scenario two, if we do EPR batteries and it comes back around. Is there a companion bill to your flushable bill on that?
Oh, not that one, there is one for the EPR, though, yeah.
Okay, so, it could be that, 2 months from now, we concur with further proposal amendments, and that further proposal amendment includes another chunk of work that we finished off, like functional lights, so. Hopes, hopes brings a term.
My dreams aren't flushed down the drain.
And what word did we get to use for that? Like already.
A Roby Fatberg.
Well, that, I'm gonna hire